is being suspended by the NBA per a Woj bomb, 8 games without pay for conduct detrimental to the league. Sources have told ESPN. It also is confirmed that he met with the commissioner, Adam Silver, in New York after leaving his counseling program in Florida, and he is ramping up to come back after this suspension. So the Grizzlies should be getting Ja Morant back, hopefully with no other hiccups in the equation. Joining us now is Justin Tinsley of Anscape. Justin, how are you? I haven't seen you since we did the panel together at, what was it, the Revolt Summit last year?
Yeah. Last October, September, October, one of them 2 months, the Revolt Conference for sure. Thanks for having me on here.
A lot has changed. You're a new dad now.
I am. It's like I was telling you earlier, it's a beautiful haze, but it's the best job I've ever had. And I know I'm gonna have it for the rest of my life. And I'm looking forward to that. Minus the missing the sleep, but you get used to it.
Listen, before we dive and circle back to Lamar Jackson, we got to go ahead and break down this Ja Morant news. It's been one thing after another. Obviously, the incidences prior to his suspension and prior to him to stepping away from the game, allegedly getting to altercations, at the mall and during a pickup basketball game. Then it was the brandishing of the gun in the strip club on the IG Live. Then those photos were released out. Him at the strip club, I guess via the security cameras, which is a different conversation and invasion of privacy. Now we're getting, after hearing the news of him entering a counseling program in Florida, he met with the commissioner and a suspension has come down, 8 games without pay. What do you make of this whole situation with Ja Morant? And then jump right in after. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think when you look at this and when you look at the totality of the situation, which you just broke down just now, if you're Ja Morant, you're probably grateful for 8 games because it could have been far, far worse. So I know everybody was hearing the potential 50 games out there with all the other details that came with that number. But if you're Ja Morant, you have to be grateful that it is 8 games. You can come back before the end of the regular season. You can come back right before the playoffs and hopefully help your team make a playoff push. But if you're Ja Morant, you have to be thankful because this could have been worse, and in some ways maybe it should have. Like, this is a guy who is one of the young faces in the NBA. I'm one of the premier young faces, and when you look at the dynamic of the league right now, he's one of the young Black American faces under the age of 30, which there aren't really that many superstars in the league. The younger superstars are more concentrated with being overseas players. So Ja Morant needed this, and the NBA needed to save Ja Morant from Ja Morant in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I agree with that completely. I mean, Ja Morant, again, like you mentioned, he is the face of this young generation of basketball. And I think there's a lot of conversations about how basketball has changed and evolved. But at the same token, we have to set a standard, right? And unfortunately, Ja Morant has to be made an example of because there's too many young players. There's too many kids even that look up to this man as their inspiration, as their idol. I think that this was a situation that was hopefully very eye-opening for him because I think there's been a lot of former players and veterans that have expressed concern about his lifestyle and maybe how he presents himself and how he carries himself. And I don't care about how he was raised. That has nothing to do with what we're talking about right now. This is present day stuff. And I think there's been some expression that there's some concern there for how he, carries himself. So hopefully this was an eye opener. I think it should be 8 games. Yeah, he's lucky because I was expecting it to at least be 50 with, the gun being on the premise, the team premises. That was kind of the rule that was being thrown around. So I think 8 games, he should feel very lucky.
It's an 8-game suspension because he got ahead of it. A lot of the times guys will try to go ahead and make excuses. It's obviously not a direct comparison. When we go to the Kyrie Irving situation, a lot of people wonder if he had just come out and said, look, I apologize, I made a mistake, was not my intention, would that situation have gone differently? With Ja Morant, he did come out and say, look, I'm sorry for embarrassing the league, my team, my family, my friends. I'm going to step away and take care of myself. And I think that anybody, and I know that I personally got a lot of backlash for having this opinion on the matter, but I think anybody who has done any type of self-reflection in their life or someone who is of a certain age and kind of looks back at the things that they have done, when they were that age or just in the past in general, can see signs and can see bad behaviors in other individuals. And this is not negating that Ja broke rules. And with that are repercussions, and the Powerade, being those ads being pulled and being suspended from the team, and the team, although they're staying afloat, they need Ja Morant in the long term. But I think also you can look at a lot of these instances and notice the domino effect of bad behavior, but tied to a deeper issue there. Nobody does certain things just because. There's always a deeper meaning. And I believe Ja when he says that he's not dealing with maybe the huge rise of his star in the past year and everything that comes with that. I believe him when he says he's not dealing and managing those stresses appropriately or correctly or in the most healthy way. I believe that because you can see it. So while that doesn't negate that there are punishments for your actions, I wish people would have maybe looked at this as more of a broader spectrum, a bigger picture, than just like, oh, Ja's a thug and Ja's cosplaying being a gangster and Ja's this. Does he want to be a Crip? There's layers to this conversation for sure.
Absolutely. I think a lot of people misunderstand celebrity and coming into a lot of money at a very young age as if it's very easy to deal with. Lifestyle changes are never easy. And then when you take into account your lifestyle change is very public, you're one of the faces of the league. You can make the argument that Ja Morant is already the greatest player in Grizzlies history. That's a lot of pressure and that's a lot of expectations to live up to. And the harmful thing about potential is eventually and very soon you have to cash in on that potential. And so that's a lot of things that Ja Morant has to live with. And of course, we don't really know what's going on in his personal life. So I hope he's used this moment for the reflection that he needs and understands that his decisions don't just impact him. He talks a lot about his young daughter. He talks a lot about his family and how much he loves her and how much he wants to protect her. Well, eventually you're going to have to explain what your actions were right here. And you have to explain to her that, yo, daddy made a mistake and don't follow daddy's route in that magnitude or
that's a great point too.
So
that's a great point too. Liv and I had this conversation off air. We have it on air sometimes. And I'm a little bit older than Liv, and I have this conversation with her often, and a lot of my friends. You have to hire and fire people in your life accordingly, and it's a lesson that sometimes you have to learn with age. And if you can go ahead and prevent a younger person from having to learn that with age, that is a huge lesson. People are assets and people are liabilities. And Ja may also have to do that in his everyday life. Look at the people around him, determine who's an asset, who's a liability. And that's very hard to do in the Black community because we're kind of taught very early on to take everybody with us and don't go Hollywood. When you go back to the hood, it's like, oh, you Hollywood now. Yes, I kind of am. Like I have to be, because there's a whole lot riding on like what I have and what I do. And I can't maneuver the way I was maneuvering in high school or even in college, or even my rookie year. It's a different ball game. I'm Ja Morant. Like when I walk outside of my house, I am a business, I am a brand, I am an enterprise. And like, if you're subtracting from that, it's all love, but you gotta go. Like it's really that simple. It's no animosity. You don't gotta go home, but you gotta get the hell out of here, kind of thing.
Hey, thank you for watching Brother from Another. If you haven't hit that subscribe button, go ahead and do that now. Don't forget you can catch us 3 to 4 weekdays on PeacockTV.com and on Sirius XM Channel 85.